What's up, my name is Dr. Alex Strahle, taking a look at your lifts. If you want to submit your lifts for future videos, go ahead and check out down in the description on how to do that. To start off, we're checking out Dawson doing a 275 kilo deadlift. Let's dive on in. So a couple of yanks on the bar there and pulls it up. Tough grinder there at the top. Questionable lockout, and there it is. All right, so let's just start first things first. I would say you're potentially a little too close to the bar. If we take a look at this right here, watch the chalk fly off of it. Boom, right there. So when that chalk flies off, that tells me that the bar is obviously in contact with the sock. That's creating more friction, making the lift a little harder. You might be a little too close to the bar. Another thing that cues me in on that is as soon as you start lifting, we have this shift going backwards. If you watch this space right here against the edge of the screen, as we go forward, it goes back. So this is giving it more of a squat feel than a deadlift to start, and then you're using a lot of this energy here to get us into a good pulling position. Another thing I want to take notice of is the hip structure there. Ideally, I actually want to see these hips kind of more in this. So what I'm talking about here is more of an external rotation than an abduction of the legs. So really opening up at the hips, getting those knees pushed out rather than just trying to get a wider stance. Let's take a little bit closer look at this. So when our hips are closer to the bar, it requires less force from the glutes in order to lock out. When we go back to physics class, this is known as torque. In order to produce more torque, you get closer to the bar. So let's move on here. We see in this position right here, these knees are practically locked out, and it looks like the hips just now started to move forward, which is why it's such a struggle to finish because you have nothing left. Ideally, the knees and the hips lock out at the same time. I will note that you are doing hip grip, which is really good. You have a solid grip there. Your core looks very strong. I don't really see your back positioning rounding at all. And I really like your head position as well. I think the biggest thing is going to be fix your hips. So get these knees pushed out a little more on each side, as well as getting these knees directly stacked over the feet like they are here, not as where you start them where they're a little bit too far forward. We don't really want to see this ankle bend right there. From there, you're going to be able to lock out easier because you're in a better position and you're not going to have this grind here going on. One last thing to look at is we have this soft knee lock and we also have this hyperextension of the back. So what's happening here is that you're leaning back with the body, which is also moving the bar back a little bit. So in order to prevent from falling, your knees are staying unlocked to give a little bit of an anterior, a little bit of a forward force. So if we can just stand upright versus leaning back, that may also help your knees actually lock out, which will then give you 3 white lights. So one thing that could really be beneficial is if you don't have enough external hip rotation is to work on some mobility stretches for that. For this, I like to do 90-90 position that can help clear up both sides and also see asymmetries left to right, and it can help with both internal and external rotation. Other than that, I really don't see any mobility or stability work needed here. You could do a pause deadlift to really reinforce that bottom positioning of the deadlift. You know, a lot of people might look at this and say, you know, the top half is the difficult part, so let's do some rack pulls. But I think your top half is difficult because of the starting position. So that's going to be where you want to focus on, is the technique of that. Overall, a really solid lift. Just a couple things to clear up. Fantastic job. For this next lifter, we have Matthew with a 245 pause bench press for reps. Let's go ahead and start the video here and let's stop it right there. So right off the bat, when I'm looking at your unracking here, I'm seeing a lot of shoulder instability. I'm just seeing these shoulders punch out this way versus unracking with the triceps. So what we're doing here is we're instantly losing our shoulder stability, which is putting the shoulders out of place and gonna make the lift a lot harder. Instead, let's really pack in those shoulders and just unrack with the triceps. One way to fix that easily is just lower the rack height couple notches or so, and really we just want to do 1/8 of a press, a really small lift. We don't want our shoulders losing position. All right, so as you go down, looks like you're doing a really good job keeping these elbows in. No really funky leg drive. That's really great to see. A lot of times you see lifters' whole body just move this way as they're pushing their legs. It looks like you're a little lax on the leg drive on the way down, so that could be something to work on right away. It's just initiating leg drive throughout the whole movement, not just as you're pushing it up. I will say here with your arch, you could get a little bit bigger of an arch. It looks like you're staying tight with the back other than the shoulders coming loose, so that part is good. But you can really improve yourself if you can get another inch or 2 on that arch. So one way to do that is maybe try and get these feet back a little bit if your ankles allow you. Really using these hip extensors to push it back. Now I won't go into much more detail than that because I do have a video on that, so check out that video down in the description. One other thing to help out with your leverage is just move your hands out a little bit. I noticed that it looks like your pinkies are on the ring, and in powerlifting we can have our index finger on the ring. So another 2 or 3 inches that you can get your hands out a little wider. I wouldn't recommend going index finger on the ring right away, especially if you used to pinky on the ring, because that big change could increase your risk of injury. However, if we can work on increasing your arch just a little bit, get your hands out a little bit wider, that's going to decrease the amount you actually have to move the bar, maybe 2 or 3 inches, which would be a significant difference in how much weight you're moving. I do really like to see as you come down, the bar is not resting on your chest here. That's great. It looks like you're really keeping it contracted and then pushing it up. A lot of times with pause bench, and you'll see this in competitions too, people rest the bar on their chest, which means you lost a lot of tightness, and now you have to regenerate that tightness, which can be very difficult to do. So really good job on that. To help improve the stability of your shoulders, some front rack carries would be great, even some suitcase or farmer's carries, really keeping that shoulder up in the socket and not letting it become lax. You could also do some bilateral external rotation, so take a band or even a cable and rotate out with your shoulder. You can also do some face pulls as well to really help strengthen the back side of the shoulder. And if you're struggling with your shoulder stability and keeping it packed and keeping it tight in the bench, check out the video down in the description. Dawson and Matthew, I hope this helped. You can benefit from it, get stronger. If you want to see your list reviewed, use the email right here on screen. I'll catch you on the next one.